So we'll probably start in another, like, we'll give it another 2 minutes and wait for maybe a tiny bit more, and then we'll just start going. Yeah.
Crazy.
No workers at all.
What's this webinar about? Because I just jumped on. I just saw Mason Corby was running it. I was like, cool, I'll jump on. What is this one?
It's all right. I kind of only realised the same thing. Just about different things about coaching, leading jumps and stuff like that, and organising different things. So even if it's beginning organising or even advanced stuff like that.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yep. So what happened was Sarah got a bunch of questions.
Did you read them?
Yeah, I did. I even wrote a whole thing on them, so it's all done.
Oh, good, because I was like, I said I'd give him the questions, and I haven't, and I was up doing research for my boss, and I was like, crap, I need to do the questions.
Yeah, no, I got all that sorted. So there's a bunch of stuff on that. So I'm just going to pretty much answer a lot of the questions people wrote, and because there was, I think, like 23 questions or something.
There was a lot. I wrote them. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, which is fine. So a lot of it covers heaps of stuff. So I can pretty much just go through that. And anyone else wanting to ask questions or whatever, like just chime in if you have a question, I guess. Some of it I may be coming to answer them. So if that's the case, I will probably just say, yeah, I'm going to answer it. Hang on, and I'll move on to that one. But otherwise, if I'm not going to answer it, I'll for sure answer. So just pipe up if that's the case. I'm more than happy for you to turn your mic up and do that, because I'm not going to be able to see everyone's hands sticking up, unfortunately.
Do you want me to ask the questions, or are you just going to run with it yourself? And
I'll just run with it. Yeah, I guess.
Sweet.
Yeah. I've got it priorly prepared.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll just start the housekeeping. So just so everyone knows, this webinar is being held by VTPC, and it will be recorded for future viewing purposes. When I do edit the photo video and put it up, it'll be available to see on VTPC Facebook page and our YouTube page. And just so you know, if you do speak, you might pop up on the screen, so you'll be recorded. So just be aware of that. If you're not comfortable with that, just put it in the chat box and I can ask the question for you. And it'll be on speaker view recording. So Mason, you'll be on the screen from now on. And it's over to you, Mason.
No worries. All right, as I say, guys, it'll be pretty informal. So some of the questions, or the first question, I guess, sorry, I'll start again. A lot of this will be on leading. So how to lead, what different things to look at, and just general things like that. So I guess I'll just start with a question. So the first one is, what are the main things a person needs to know before they should be leading a jump? Now, can be for all levels. So the first thing, I guess, when you're starting looking at leading a jump, you can lead a jump on 3 ways, 2 ways. It depends on how you really take it. You can lead a 10-way or a 20-way. So regardless, the theory in my mind's all the same. You want to know how to spot. That's a really big one, I think. So learning how to spot and know where you are is an important one. Also being able to say not just where you're going to go, but where you're going to open. We can find a lot of people when they say they're going to track in a certain direction, they'll get off the plane and they'll start tracking in that certain direction, and they know once they've turned off, they kind of leave everything else there. So it's really important that picking where you're going to open kind of forces you to focus the whole way onto the ground to make sure you are going to hit that spot. Now, knowing how to spot is also going to make this a bit easier, because if you're flying on an angle like this, and say this where my fingers are on my head, if you're looking at the ground this direction, you're going to be looking behind you if you're traveling here. So it's really important knowing the differences when spotting. So knowing that when you're looking here, you're actually above the ground this way. You're not above this point on the ground that you're looking at. You may be somewhere else. So really learning how to spot and the differences of where you are above the ground rather than where you're looking at is very important. Knowing the level of everyone in the group is probably extremely important too. So if someone's not up to the level, and knowing how to hold a stable and consistent speed. So if you're kind of just learning how to fly angles on the belly or something, it's probably not the best thing for you to be leading a jump, because you want to be able to be consistent. So all those others have some nice consistent base to go off when they're following for you. And I guess the last one is be able to fly to the weakest link on the group. So that's kind of goes with knowing the level of the group, really knowing how to fly to them. So you're not just rushing off of them, leaving them behind and not being able to get back. In saying that, but sometimes you're going to lead a jump, and you're gonna have plenty of times where people, yeah, they're not there. They're left out in the bushes. I've been there many times myself before, and I reckon, looking at a bunch of you guys, I'm pretty sure you have been on a jump with me before where some of you have been left behind as well. So that's normal. It's going to happen. But as long as you're able to adjust that and slow down if need be, and gradually slow down, that makes it a lot easier. So that comes back to just knowing your speed and how to fly your consistent speed. That really helps. So the next one, are there any minimum requirements for a person who should have before leading a jump? Now, some of these questions are very, very similar to each other. So just sorry about that. So the minimum requirements, same thing again. I'd say being able to spot, that's a big one. If you're going to be tracking or leading or doing anything where someone else's lives are in your responsibility, knowing where you are is an extremely important one. Same thing as before, again, not learning the discipline that you're leading. You don't have to necessarily be one of the high flyers in the group, like highest level flyers. Sorry, not higher flyers. You probably shouldn't be high when you're in the group. So one of the higher level flyers, but it doesn't need to be the highest, okay? But just as long as it's not the weakest level, then that's probably the more important thing, okay? When leading bigger free fly groups, a free fly crest is definitely preferable. So if you're leading, say, like a 6-way or an 8-way, it's really recommended to have a free fly crest, like a full crest, head down and head up. It's not necessarily, you don't need to have it, but it's definitely recommended. In the smaller groups, it's also preferred, but it's definitely not a must. So if you're leading a tracking group of 3 people or something like this, I'm pretty sure you don't need to have a free fly crest for something like this. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure. Is there any questions with any of those 2 ones? I just said those 2 without questions before, just because they're quite similar. Negative? All right. So the next one, in Victoria, we focus on tracking and angle jumps. What is your advice for a person wanting to lead an angle jump and the things they should be aware of before agreeing to do this? Everything I just said, pretty much. I think we'll cover that one. What are the main things a person needs to be aware of before leading a head-up jump, and the main issues with leading head-up jump? So this one can be tricky. I'm guessing this is head-up angle jump. Okay, so probably the skill level again. Skill of participants is a big one. So knowing everyone's level, how the group is getting into the into head-up is a very big important one. So there's many ways you can get into head-up. So you can exit from the plane head up and start moving on an angle, or you can exit head up vertical straight away. This can be quite hard because exiting head up really spreads the group apart a lot. They might have one person over here and another person over here. Sorry guys, I just realized I was talking to the screen like that. I'm trying to read too much. So you might have they just kind of spread out heaps, and this causes it to really difficult to start closing those distances again. It takes a long time to do it. So I've seen a lot of people try to lead an angle jump or a head down jump first. They'll transition, and then everyone's a lot closer. Now this can work quite well if everyone has a good skill level of angle flying and head up flying. But the problem is when leading angle jumps to head up jumps, when people don't really have that head up part stable yet, is the group can spread out really quick, and then the closing distances are really quick too. Especially if someone does the transition here and they haven't quite finished the transition yet, this person hasn't started yet, that closing distance can be really bad. So that's where we see some people cork while others are still diving and they hit into each other. So sometimes the harder exit is more preferable to go for safety. So especially if you're exiting head up, it's going to take you a lot longer to get there. But now you're going to be a lot safer because you have less things going on, less people trying to transition and all this kind of stuff. So sometimes sacrifice speed and comfort for safety. So I really recommend trying to do as much head-up exits as possible. It's going to get you really comfortable doing head-up moving at first. And then sucking at that, just like when we first started doing angle flying, how we suck flying angle head down flying at first, and then the more you do it, the more you progress. And this is going to be the same. It's a bit hard for us to go back, I find, once our skill levels at the highest standard in one discipline, to then go and restart another discipline can be a bit frustrating. So we all go through it. So I went through it again when I had to do head up. It's just you got to bite that bullet and go through it again. I think, is a big one. So also for the question again was, what are the main things people need to be aware of for head up when leading a jump? So not flying at full speed for people who are learning to fly at, for people who are learning to fly. So as a leader, it's really important that you learn to fly at 70%. You'll see a lot of people when they start leading head up jumps, they're in this maxed out position with their arms straight and their legs straight. It can be nice to fly that fast, but for people learning, they get lost really quick. And also at that high speed, when everything's closed in you like this, has a more tendency to cork out as well. So it's really important that you try to learn to fly at a 75% speed for that head up, not trying to fly standing and all this kind of stuff. It really helps. You might look, the issue I think with a lot of this is when you don't have this position straight, you look really gay when you are, I don't know, gay is not the right word, but you look like you're hanging your shit. When you're doing it the other way, when you're flying a little bit slower, you're kind of really crunched up and squatting. It feels really awkward to fly, but for everyone else in the group, it makes it just that little bit easier for them to learn those ranges, because if you're at 100%, they can't catch up. So give them that little bit of range. Okay, so that next one was be at a good level to not cork out the group, so I went over that. Break off higher, so 5.5 is a good height if you're flying head up, but sometimes if you're beginning 6,000 doesn't hurt as well, okay? Same thing, just biting that bullet when you're first starting out. Some things are going to take a bit longer. You are chewing up a lot more height when you're flying head up vertically on that break off area, because you don't get as much time to track off. It's a lot harder to go flat head up. So, okay, so the next one was going fast speed. So the group, yeah, I think I covered that one. So yeah, just not going flat out. So the lower experience can have some speed. Okay. What are the main things a person needs to be aware of before leading a head down jump, and the main issues with leading a head down jump? Okay, so this one can be a bit tricky. So the main thing with this one, I guess, it's hard. Make it legal. You can really get fried these days if people aren't on the, don't have their crest and something happens. So sometimes you can get away with not having legal jumps and stuff like this if not everyone has the free fly crest or such and such. But the main one is making it legal, and I don't mean to say that as a goody two shoes, because usually I was the most dodgy, but it can really bite you in the ass big time. I've seen it many times on many jumps, not that I've been on, but some I've been on as well. Not necessarily organising, but in the beginning as well, organising, because in the beginning days of having some close calls, and there's nothing worse than knowing you've organised a jump and watching something happen in front of you and wondering whether you need to chase someone because they might have broke their neck or something. So to cover your ass, make it legal. It makes it that little bit easier. And it makes so you don't get screwed over, and also your friends are safe is probably the biggest one. Yeah, that's probably the biggest. Next thing as well, I guess corking can be a big issue. So going on top of that, people saying that they're at a higher skill level than they actually are. This can be really tricky when you're organising jumps. It helps when you know all the people on it and you know their friends, for sure. But if you're at a boogie and you're organising, that makes it hard. Or if someone rocks up to the drop zone that you don't know, or if you've gone to a drop zone and you don't know anyone, it makes it really hard. So speaking for the other people rather than just an organizer, if you do go to a drop and you don't know anyone, it doesn't hurt for sure to take your footage and show someone, because that can help you. It can make you feel like a bit like a dick, like, here, check me out, look what I can do. But then it does give people a clear idea of what level you're at, so don't be afraid of doing that. Also, don't be talk yourself down, as in tell people you're worse than what you are, and that way they can only be impressed, essentially. It's better saying you're worse than what you are. That way, if you say you're better, and then you are at that level even, and then you screw up, well, then they're going to look at you like you've just lied to them and you screwed up. So it's better just to say, look, can't do this, I'm at this level, and you might be able to do it, even though it's just a little bit above, and that way, at least if you prove it, they give you more trust, and you might be able to move from there. And if not, it is what it is, unfortunately. yeah, people are at a high skill level. Okay, yeah, so that's the same thing. People at a high level have the same shit day. Look for, so if people are at a high skill level as well, look for signs of fatigue or a distant mind, or they might be distracted or something like this as well. This can be something for head up jump, head down jumps, especially if you know them and you've jumped with them a lot and they're just not really acting normal. I've seen that many times on a lot of the DDs and a lot of other stuff where I'll give them the opportunity, but they're just kind of not there. And then some things have some close calls as well. And that's made me now refrain. So I'll happily pull people up if they're a bit more fatigued, tell them to sit off rather than going, come on, we need to fill this load. So for sure, don't be afraid to say that. And people will probably thank you for it as well, because a lot of the time they're probably feeling pressured by the group to get on and jump. And it's best to give them that opportunity to get off the jump rather than feeling like they need to be on because they're going to let everyone else down. And same again as with the angle one, just know your speed and your body position, your skill level. So if you're leading a jump, don't fly at tunnel speed and fly this slow speed and all the brakes out. You want to try and give those guys that are a bit heavier that range. It's going to allow them to fly fast. It's going to allow them to have a more fun jump. And unfortunately for those people that are really skinny, you just got to suck it up and fly a bit faster, because to be honest, if you look at aerodynamics and physics, it's much easier for a smaller person to take surface area away and increase that speed and decrease their drag than it is for a large person to shed kilos and weight in the sky. So speed's your friend. Try to fly at 75 or 70% to faster. As soon as you start feeling like you need it, have brakes or your foot just on the brakes the whole time, you're probably going that little bit slow. So speed's your friend when flying head down. Yes, so that's the head down one. Any questions for any of that stuff so far? If there is.
Bro, I just want to comment on your last one, Mason,
Yes,
about it being harder for skinnier people and also smaller. It's not impossible. Don't get yourself down. Look at the difference between Jimmy Cooper and Kyle Chick.
Yeah.
Jimmy Cooper is long, lanky, can just catch every bit of air. Kyle Chick is small, scrawny, and a piece of shit. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. But he can fly with Jimmy just because he taught himself how to fly at his level, like how to actually do it. So, yeah, all for the small people, you can do it. It's not impossible.
No, definitely not. Some of the better flyers I know of are small. You look at Benny as well.
Benny Cutler, yeah.
Super skinny, super small. You look at there's a heap out there. Hey, skinny and small, you have more range. So it's hard to go fast, but just get used to taking that drag out. We're all trying to go fast anyway. So I just think the big guys have more surface area. So yeah, they got some sort of drag there. Cool. Anyone else? Negative? All right. So cheers for that, Andrew.
Nah, you're right, mate.
I'll call you by your proper name. So what are the main next questions? What are the main things a person needs to be aware of before leading a dynamic jump, and the main issues with leading dynamic jumps? So this is a good question. So same thing again as very back to the beginning. Know where you're going to open, not just where you're going to fly. So this can be used as a checkpoint throughout the jump, as a monitoring, just looking on, shit, am I there? No, I'm not there, because the dynamic jumps will move all over the sky. So not just in that one place, and they won't just track in that one direction as well. So you really have to monitor that the entire time. Dynamic can fall just as slow as belly flying as well. So just think about low speeds in the tunnel, how generally a lot of the time we're learning to carve at a lower speed these days than higher speeds. Not everyone, but I'd say the most these days are doing that. So with that in mind, just know that you will probably have the same drift rate as a belly flyer, so you're going to drift more. Okay, so really be aware of that one as well. Losing awareness, it can be really easy to lose awareness during a carve, so be sure when you're leaving a carve to go tracking again that you check your heading immediately. Doing it whilst carving can be worse, can be done, but it can also be really, really tricky. As you can lose yourself in the transition, and you might end up tracking where you think you're not going. Also doing transitions early. So if you're doing a tracking jump and then you transition to head up, okay, if you're slightly off on this, the same thing as I said before with groups coming through on you or stuff like this. So if you are going to do a transition, really brief that transition thoroughly beforehand. So are you going to do a big layout? Is it a small layout? Is it a flip to head up? And just make sure everyone's on the same page. If they're not, get them to repeat it back to you and describe what they think the transition is. And the same thing if you're not thinking about leading a jump, hit the coach up and say, hey man, like it looks like I'm kind of not getting it. I've never done this before. Like can you run me through it? Or if you're saying this to him and it's a 9-way, maybe change the jump and not do it, because doing it on a 9-way is probably not the place to practice it, even though we've all done it. And know the level of the group, I guess, same thing. So don't go on a dynamic jump if someone hasn't carved. Don't do a transition from belly angles to head up if the person hasn't done head up or something like this. So really try to keep it. Dynamic's really important to keep within that level of the group. Also, dynamic in the tunnel is very different than dynamic in the sky. So if you can do dynamic in the tunnel, doesn't necessarily mean you can do it in the sky as well. Dynamic is probably the highest level thing you can do in the sky, hands down. So people who can do it in the tunnel themselves, even just the transitions and the layouts, you really want to be trying to make sure you can do everything in the tunnel at 80-85% unlinked. Even if it's hunched, that's fine. Hunched, high speeds, that's no worries. But I'd say that's when you're ready to do dynamic in the sky after then. If you haven't got the transition sorted yet or the links, I wouldn't try to do it. And same, that goes to this next point is don't try to organize 6-point in every dynamic jump. I see a lot, and I've done it myself in the beginning. I see a lot of organizers trying to plan these extravagant jumps with various different points and stuff like this, yet they've never done that 1 point themselves. Not themselves, they've never done that 1 point as a group. So if you've never done a shuffler in the tunnel, don't try to do it in the sky. Same as if you've never done outface or anything like this. Really try. There's no problem to try and go and do 20 switches in a jump as a group. It really works. Yeah, it's the same as why we do as 4-way points. We drill the same jump over and over and over and over again, and it might just be 2 points. And once you're proficient at doing those 2 points, then add the third in. You may, when you add the third in, instead of adding a third in, you go and brief another 2 separate points, and then you can add them together this way. So build separate jumps rather than try to one big extravagant jump. So that way, once you've perfected these many jumps, you can combine the whole jumps in one. And generally, that's how we build the dynamic jumps, I find personally. Any questions on dynamic? Oh, Dimitri, you need to turn your mic on.
Yeah. I have a question. Sorry. It's a very specific question. I've just seen like many collisions like that. Let's say it's a dynamic jump which includes carving and an angle part. And let's say a group goes from carving to an angle. And probably you've seen this many times too, when a leader just bumps into somebody who is behind his back, just going to belly. So I'm just thinking, would it be a good idea just like to go, like if you cannot see everyone, if it's a big group, just to go away from carving, like being still kind of on your back in this angle, and after this, seeing that it's nobody in front of you, just doing a transition to a belly, or maybe there are some other tips how to do this.
This is perfect. So ideally, before you leave, you can leave the carving jump on your belly for sure, but the only time you want to do this is when you can see everyone. If you have a question that where is anyone, do the technique you're saying for sure, and that way you can kind of turn. But ideally, you shouldn't be when you're carving. How's this hat? No, you can't see the hat very well. I'm looking for something to show you. Yes, that's a circle, big coaster. So when you're carving around this circle. When you start leaving a carve, the carve shouldn't be left like this. Ideally, the carve should be continued into the carve, so the spiral's just getting larger and larger until then you go off. If the carve turns sharply off, then that's when someone can be behind you. Whereas if you have that visual and you're looking at across the group, you can see the last person. If you just start flying towards that last person, then you know they're clear. Whereas if you're seeing the carve and then just sharply turning out, that's when it can go wrong. So you really want to make sure that that carve just turns into a larger carve rather than a stop.
Okay, gotcha.
Especially a fridge. I'll show you
So
footage of
just
that
like,
one. But what you're saying, Dimmers, you're on the right page. Do that.
sweet. Thank
Yep.
you.
That's an easy one. I'll write that down because I'll have to try and expand on that later on. Any more questions for dynamic? Negative. All right. Tips for a person who wants to lead a jump. Okay, so if you've never led a jump before and you want to lead a jump, this what I'm about to say now is going to seem really like really detailed. Now, keep in mind this is for me, but I do recommend doing something like this. And what I've created this, what I'm about to say, over many years of doing it, so it's very refined. So I have a jump pattern that I go through before each jump. Now I break it down, I guess, into the pre-jump, the jump itself, and then the debrief. So I'm not going to talk about the debrief, but I'll talk about the pre-jump and the jump itself. So generally, you want to know the skill level of the group first. So that's your preparation, okay? And then you want to brief your group accordingly. So going through each individual's roles on the jump and how to break off. Once you've briefed how to break off and where they're all going, then go back to the exit, rebrief the exit, do the run through of the jump, and then I check in after this. I check in what the other groups are doing and what the weather conditions are. After I've done this, I adjust the jump accordingly. So it might just be I'm going under the plane rather than off the plane, or we're going first or second or something like this, or instead of doing a 270 turn, we're going to go left. So very minimal changes, okay? So I try to keep it like that. Then I rebrief before loading the plane, making sure everyone's clear on the jump, and same with the other groups. Now that's where the pre-jumps kind of finishes. Now on the way up, I'm making sure that on the way up in the plane, especially if I'm doing an angle jump, I'm checking the weather conditions, and I'm checking looking out of the plane, looking to see what's coming, to see if the prediction I got given before the jump was correct. Okay, because sometimes things can change. You might get up there, you've got a crosswind now, or you look out the window and you can tell you're flying east, but the plane's getting pushed sideways to the north. Yep. So this tells you the wind, and so in essence, the wind might be different than what you've been given. So you now know you might need to change jump, talk to everyone, and blah blah blah. So you can change it on the fly like that. This way, you're avoiding things like the jump plan could go really well, but if you have all of a sudden a change in wind and the drift of the other groups are different, you might have tracked off jump run, but the other groups have drifted over you because of a change in wind conditions. They might happen with which no one can predict. So this, as I said, this is just over years of doing it that I've come up with a couple of like safety checks. So once I've exited the plane, I do a checklist of 3 things. I check the spot immediately, and then I check the group. So when I check the group, I'm checking for their positions. Are they flying fast? Are they flying like I briefed? Are they flying like I think they should? If once I check them, I check myself. How am I? Am I flying fast? Am I matching them? Is there a reason their body position is not correct is because I'm doing something wrong? So am I faster? Am I slower than I actually am? Because sometimes you might think you're flying fast, but you're actually flying slow. You might think you're going steep by steepening your body up, but you don't realize you've brought your knees right to your chest, which is breaking you. So there's certain things you want to check with your body then. Once you've checked that, you've made your adjustments. I check my heading again, then I check the group, and then I check myself. And this pattern is the same the whole way down. Check the heading, check the group. Yep, the group looks good. How am I? Okay, next point. Boom, next point's done. Heading, group, yep, group's good. Oh, I'm good, cool. Next point. That way, in those checking points, when you're checking for the group, you're checking to see if someone's far away. Are they struggling behind you? Do you need to help them out? Can you move the group over to them? Do you need to slow down? So they're your checklist and your general checkpoints. And I do that all the way to breaking off. Pretty much. Once you've broken off, generally everyone's on their own. You can't really control them. It's up to them to get themselves to the ground. And then you can just generally debrief all those. But for me, those 3-point checklists is what I find keeps me the safest and everyone else the safest. And it allows me to adjust the jump during the jump rather than just kind of holding a position and then looking for where everyone is and then debriefing it when I get down. I find it just a little bit easier. Well, not easier. It's definitely not easier. I have to pay more attention. But yeah. It'll be safer. Anyone got questions on that one? That was a big one. These next one's a bit smaller. Negative? All right, cool. So what skills do you recommend a person should have before becoming a coach? So this can change for sure. Good knowledge of all free fly positions and things that could go bad is probably the best thing I can recommend. So experience is really recommended. The more experience you have, the better it's going to be. You want to have your free fly crest for sure. That's definitely something you want to have. And you would have done a good range of big ways, smaller ways, stuff like this. It's not necessarily saying that someone who doesn't have that can't be a good coach, because I don't think a coach is necessarily someone that's the best flyer. I think it's probably someone that can explain it the best and explain it really well to teach those next people coming through. Because sometimes the best flyers are great, but they just can't get it out of their mouth and get their thoughts out, which it can be quite hard. So experience gives you this. Don't be afraid to organise your mates on your weekend and go and jump one or two jumps, not one or two, go and do one or two ways with some beginner guys. You don't need to have your coach rating to jump with people and give advice. It's like coaching them. I guess that is coaching, giving advice, but you don't need to do that when you go with them. You can help them out and stuff. It's when you're actually coaching, giving crests and stuff like this. So if you're going to go and jump with a mate, and give some feedback for sure. If you're going to go be a base with them, for sure. If you need to, go and do that and go and check with the coach that the advice you're giving them is good. Go and get coaching for yourself. Have a coach. That helps the most, I think. 500 plus jumps if you don't have tunnel, I recommend for sure. I know a lot of people will say this is a lot, but it's the same thing, down to experience. These days, things are changing so quickly and the skill level is getting so high that I recommend it as many jumps as you can. But with tunnel, this can go quicker. So if you do have a lot of tunnel and stuff like that, for sure you might be able to coach a lot quicker. You got a lot of experience coaching in the tunnel and stuff. That definitely has an effect for sure. Next says, are there any minimum requirements you need to have before becoming a coach? So it's very similar as the other one. Off the top of my head, I don't necessarily think there is. I think the only main one would be having your free fly crest. And the full lot of it. I definitely recommend having as much experience as you can, but same thing as before. Any questions on those of becoming a coach or regulations or anything like this?
No, I want to add to your one, Mason, right there.
Yep.
Before actually kind of going, am I eligible to go for my coach rating or not? It's probably recommended that you actually go to a pretty high skilled coach at your drop zone before going, am I capable of going for my coach rating? Because I see a lot on Instagram. There's a few people that I follow that have gone for their coach rating and they're from smaller drop zones and they're like the best at their drop zone, which is fair enough. But then you put them up to, high skill level coaches at other drop zones and they absolutely smash them out of the park. So before going for your coach rating, actually head to a higher skilled coach and get their opinion. And they might just say, hey, you're not ready, or there's a few things you need to do beforehand. Or going for your coach rating, take that with a grain of salt, and yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, ask yourself, why do you want your coach rating? What's the goal for doing it, I guess? And
what's the end result? Like, what do I want to do to get my coach rating? What for? Yeah,
exactly. And then once you know, I guess if you wanted to help out people, for sure, then you can improve this way, and go on. The coach at the drop zone will probably be able to point you in that direction of where you could find more information from.
Can I ask, with the coaching, like if you become a free fly coach, say, because I know with the B-Rel coaching, the canopy side of it is a big part of it. Do you feel with the free fly coaching you'd want to have that knowledge as well?
I think it definitely helps as well, for sure. Like for me, I stayed away from a lot of canopy coach myself, but I knew how to fly. But I could give advice where need be. But for still, I don't focus on it as much. I think it's something I'd like to focus on a bit more, but I don't focus on as much. But I think you want to have a good awareness. So if you are, and that becomes down to why I say you can skip a bit quicker with the tunnel, but the jumps in experience is a big part of it, because the more experience you have skydiving as a coach, we're talking about skydive coaching here, not tunnel coaching. the more it's going to help you. You're going to know that spatial distance for tracking and for all that kind of stuff, dynamic jumps. And then you'll know those things where if you do have close openings, if you have your canopy experience, you're going to know how far people need to track off and what the different incidences with openings and stuff like that are going to have effect with.
Could I just pick up on a point that you said as well, Mason,
Mm-hmm.
About like if you're wanting to coach, actually getting someone like a more senior coach to kind of mentor you as well. In my other job, I do a lot of this kind of elite development. And I think that is so important and something I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of it in skydiving, and it might be just I haven't seen it.
Right.
But I think a lot of people are reluctant to seek out more senior people like that way to talk about coaching. I think that's
at the moment I'm working alongside 4 other coaches along in the APF, and we're looking at trying to create something along what you're talking about, a mentor system for people trying to get into coaching, so they have a clear path of where to go, who to see in each discipline, and more not just discipline specific, but actually how to develop and give proper coaching lessons, plans, and all this kind of stuff. So I agree 100%. That's something that's needed. I'll send me a message afterwards. Let's yak a bit afterwards.
Cool. Something similar to like what Jules is doing, like the Train the Trainer program.
That's the exact people I'm working with.
Ah, good old Jules.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, that's that one. The main issue. Okay. So this kind of leads on to that as well. What are the main issues that you have seen people struggling with when coaching? Right. So explaining their thoughts, probably. Being able to explain something more than just be strong. Or we want to try and like be strong or be straight or something like this. We want to explain why people need to be strong, and not just why, but how. Not just strong, but why to be straight, how to be straight, and what the effect of. If you're ever finding it very difficult and hard to get your words across, and you just find yourself generalizing with those words, ask yourself why. So just be strong. Why? Okay. How? How do I be strong? Why do I be strong? If it takes you 5 or 6 minutes to sit there and think about it, take that time. If you have to admit to them, I don't know, go and find someone else. Something that's really, really helps for sure. Can you please tell us the common mistakes or coincidences you have seen when people leading jumps and how to avoid them? All right. So getting distracted by the group, I reckon. This is probably the big one. People can get distracted very, very easily by the group, or they can get distracted by a mistake that happens in the group that they weren't expecting. And this might be a jump exploding on exit, or it might be the jump going really, 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 really good. And then someone who you didn't expect to fall off the group fell off the group, and now you don't know what to do without them. And then people freeze, or someone's giving someone a high five during a track and you get distracted from the heading and you turn off. So I'd say this is probably the biggest one. So I would really try to either lead smaller jumps if you're getting distracted, or have that jump plan that I was talking about before. When you have that jump plan, it allows you to come back to what's going on. So you're not just looking at someone going, wow, that guy's really far away. Like, he's really far away. You're looking going, wow, he's really far away. Why is he far away? He looks straight. How am I? Oh, I'm flogging it. That's why I'm pinning it away from him. That's why he's far away. So it allows you that question. So you're not just kind of getting distracted within it and caught up in it, but you're also able to pull yourself back from the jump. So I think getting distracted by the group is probably the biggest thing I see of mistakes that happen when people are leading. And that can be the same as what you were saying before, Dimmers, about the carving one. Someone moves off the carving and then they're distracted the whole time looking for where that guy is. And now they're lost 4 or 5 other guys. And when they go to track off, because breaking off from a group that's carving, as the ones of you that have done that will know, it can get very, 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 very scary. You don't know where everyone is. So, distraction. What is the worst incident you have had as a coach, and what did you learn from it? I've seen a lot of incidences. I probably do not know which one's the baddest one. Probably the lack of awareness, I would say, and the loss of attention, the same as what I said above. So just getting distracted by something or losing your train of thought. I've had that many times before. It can be a coach losing losing concentration, or it can also be a student losing concentration as well. I've had before where I've turned around, and I'll see if he's in this meeting. I don't think so. No, I've had a couple before when I've turned around, and I've gone to wave off from the group, and I was going to turn around and do a backflip and pitch. When I turned around, I caught this glimpse of someone in the sun, and I couldn't see them. They disappeared again. I thought, oh, was someone there or not? I'm like, and I thought, no, you know what? I'm not going to pitch. So I turned around, I kept tracking, and then I dumped, and then he tracked over the top of me. He just missed my canopy, and I'd waved off at everything. If I hadn't have second guessed and turned to track again, and I just pitched while facing the sunlight, he would have gone through my canopy. Now, I've had on other jumps before where that was just because he froze. He was like, I don't know what to do. I shouldn't be here. And he froze. I've had on other jumps before where I was leading on my back. I watched the plane. I only had a very, 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 very small group. 2 people on their belly tracking. They were 2 inexperienced people, just learning to track. They'd maybe done 5 to 10 jumps each tracking. And I had a girl on her back, which I'd done maybe 50 jumps with before. She was really, really consistent backfire. So tracking along, I wave off. I watched the least experienced girl track off from me, and she turns and she does a track at 90 degrees off from jump heading. The other girl, I watch her pitch. As I roll over, the girl who was on her back comes screaming past me under canopy. And then I roll over and I pitch, thinking I've just watched one track off. I've just watched one pitch, and I've watched the other deploy past me. And then as I've pitched, the girl that I first watched track off had come back around, and she flew past my canopy. So a lot of this, like, I'd put in mitigations for what I could do. I told the girl before to track off. I watched her track off. I watched the other one pitch. So I thought I'd had certain things in place. I trusted the girl on the back before me. She was the only one on the back, so I thought she was going to track off. So there's certain things you can think, and you can put certain things in place all you want, but sometimes things happen. And that's just how it is. So really trying to be aware of as much as you can, but even then, shit happens, unfortunately. What tips do you have to a new coach? There is no rush. Take your time and learn how to deliver information first, rather than just leading the largest group or trying to lead the sickest jump. All things come with time and practice. Just be patient and really hone and refine your skills with small groups, I reckon. You don't need to go as big as possible. Next one, I think I've covered this one already. It says, do you cater for the weaker jumper or the stronger jumper? And I always cater for the weakest. The reason is because the weakest is where the safety is at. You cater for them, they're going to get a good jump out of it because they're going to be there, and therefore a high level flyer should most likely always be there. And if they're there and they're bored, give them a different task to do. Maybe get them to do transitions, maybe get them to hold a dock in a different way. If they're really, really good, just tell them they can only dock with a finger, like that. I don't know. Get them to get their mind out of there. Yes. Next one. How do you tell a jumper that they do not have the necessary skill level to participate in a jump? This is a hard one. I don't like doing this. I think it's probably the best just to tell them why. Not be a dick about it. Yeah, just give them the reasons, the safety side. Yeah, usually with me, I'm lucky as I can just stick them in another group. A lower level group that might suit their skill level really well, so I don't look like a wanker. And then it actually turns out better for them. But if you're at a drop zone, this can be really, really hard on a weekend because they might not have anyone to jump with, so they're left kind of on their own. So I guess if this is the case, go out of your way to help them out. Maybe brief the jump for them, debrief them, find someone else for them to jump with, and then debrief that. Don't just tell them to bugger off and leave them on their own. Like, give them a hand if that's the case. Just try to be nice. I guess here's a good one. What is your thoughts about the structure of progressing in skydiving? In particular, the fact that you don't need to have your head up crest signed off before you start learning head down. I think this is a good thing because I wrote that rule. The reason I wrote it that way is because I've seen many people, the reason it was written that way was because when we first started learning free fly, back when I started, majority of people could fly 8-way head down and do all these wicked sequentials, yet they couldn't dock head up. They couldn't dock head up to save their life. So I'm not going to go and make a rule that people can't practice head down when that's actually easier than to learning to take a dock head up. So I think what the rules used to be was you must have your full head up crest complete before you're allowed to start attempting head down. And a lot of people were whinging about that. And I agreed for them to whinge about it because I think it's unfair to, you're essentially, that's what pushed so many people to do tracking and angles, is because they couldn't do head down. And then that started leading people to dodge rules and be dodgy with rules. So if we let them practice head up to a point where they don't need a dock, they could just fly safe. They can move forward, back, up, down. They don't even need to move forward, back. They just need to be safe in their relatively area, prove they're safe. Don't have to dock. Now they can start doing head down. They can work full on the head down crest up to a point where they can dock. And generally in my experience, by the time someone has gotten to the point of where they can take a dock head down, their head up's going to be much, much better. And they're probably going to be, by the time they're ready to go for the level 2 head down, they're ready to knock on the level 1 head up. Cool. Seeing a lot of yawn and faces in there. Does anyone have any questions or anything they would like to add?
Yeah, if you look at the chat, Mason.
Yep.
Are we able just to talk about within like angles and stuff about like equipment, like the container, like LTs and stuff, ditters?
Yes, we can. Yep, for sure. I'm sorry, I'm just reading everything else on there. Yes, sorry. So about ditters and equipment and all this kind of stuff that aids things.
Yeah, so like we're all talking about like, you know, the safest way and, you know, how to become a leader and a coach, but we're kind of forgetting the other part, like the equipment that's on our back, you know, like what's safe, what's preferred.
Cool. So this is a good question. All right. Well, I was going to lead to some of this later on, but I may as well talk to it now because I think we are. Do we have a time limit, Sarah?
No time limit. You can speak as long as you want.
Not a problem.
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah. Shitloads of good stuff out there now to help with angles and learning to move and all this. The one, not being biased because I kind of work from now, Takuna really, really helps with this. You can see clearly straight up where you're tracking and where you've been. So if you get out of the plane and you monitor a lot of your jumps and you think, okay, I've been tracking off in this direction the whole time, you can monitor that pretty quickly and look on the 3D viz or even the 2D viz and see your exact path that you've taken pretty much. You can see where you've been, where your opening height is, all this kind of stuff. I'm just looking now for tracking. Here we go. I'll do a screen share. Yeah, this is probably a good one. So I'm not sure if some of you have seen it. This is the 3D viz stuff from one of the shots that might have been up on Facebook recently, I think. Okay, you can all see that. So that's just the 3D viz screen. This isn't live. This is just a screenshot I've taken. And you can see the blue line. You can see how it's tracked off over in this direction. The orange line is jump run. This is Byron Bay DZ. And you can quite easily see that. Okay, there's no question there. There's no, did I go off jump run? How far did I go off jump run? Did I go off 45? Did I go 90 or anything like this? So if you get a chance to use those or jump with those, whoop, shit, don't cancel that. No. Whoop. Did I stop screen sharing? I did. Sorry guys, as I said, I'm just getting used to it still. So it really, really helps. You can see clear as day where you went. Helps with dynamic jumps and turning jumps and stuff like this as well, because sometimes what we found is when you're starting to do tracking jumps where a lot of people are doing 270s under the plane, they'll track off up that jump run, and then as they turn to do a 270, they don't realize that they've tracked up jump run that little bit, and when they've turned back down, they've actually flown across where that second group's gotten out. Okay, so it really helps to monitor how far you're tracking forwards, how far you're tracking off, how far you're tracking back around. Cool. If you can't afford a Dakunu, most of the GoPros have them. Was also, thanks you, Alexandra. Cheers for that. They do. So there you go. See, I'm learning. There's a chat there too. If you can't afford, so the GPS is integrated with those now too. Okay, so that apparently that works pretty good. I haven't used those myself. There's also the Fly Sight as well. So there's a lot of good things on that. So really have a look around. There's heaps of different tools these days to try and help you out with navigating and tracking. I think, what was the other one? Can't remember the other one off the top of my head. This also helps for wingsuiting and stuff like that. For me, for leading as well. You'll also find with the Dakunu, it has the jump run speeds, it has ground speed, all this kind of stuff. So that's what I'm talking about, monitoring on the way to height. If you don't have that, these are still in the plane too, but so make sure you talk to the pilot, learn how to use ground speed, wind speed, ground speed and air speed, and the differences those are. For you guys, if you don't know on there at the moment, ground speed is the speed at which you're traveling across the ground, and air speed is the speed at which you're traveling through the air. So if you have a headwind and your airspeed might be say 90 or 120 knots, because now you have a headwind, so to keep that same speed as the ground, you now need to have a high airspeed. Whereas if you have say a tailwind, your airspeed might be 80 knots and your ground speed's 80 knots. Sorry, if you have no tailwind, nil wind, it's 80 knots, 80 knots. Okay, so it does change. So I'm not going to go through that because that's a whole nother lesson in itself. But explore that. Yeah, so if you don't even have the Dakunu's, check out the GPS on the plane, or even the GoPros as well. Equipment also, make sure when you are leading jumps or even just the drop zone, checking people's equipment for safety. A lot of it is the rigs of where the risers go, and a lot of risers will fall off. This can be due to multiple things. One, the way the reserve's packed. Okay, so you'll see, here's something I have almost prepared earlier. I was teaching my little sister how to pack a parachute before. So, this bit here, okay, so I see a lot of the risers in tracking coming open. They come open really easy. You'll see, I'll pull that away. This one's quite a good slit here, but it's covering it. It's not a really big one. You'll see some that come right down and this bit bulges up, okay? That's what can cause these to flick open a lot, or poor magnets. So you want to try and stick 3 magnets in, 1, 2, 3, and make sure that when the rigger packs, this part here isn't too bulgy, okay? Every rig's going to be different, okay? But if a rigger puts too much up near the top, this is like the slider style, so it's up here. If they put too much in the ears, it's going to really fall. So if you see someone's rig doing this, or your rig's doing this, be aware of that. And it also can happen with the articulated harnesses as well. So what I mean by that is when you have rings around near the chest strap, which causes this to fall off, and then more air to get up under the riser housing. Sorry, the riser covers, and flop those open. So really check those out. It's important to have them. I also use a pull out now as well, because I find that just keeps everything in a little bit better. And I put my pin under the flap rather than over the flap, just because I've had a lot of people scraping rigs. So when you're organising a lot of jumps or coaching as well, you'll find you're around a lot more people all the time, and you have the tendency for people to bump your rig and stuff like that. So really have a look at different ways to keep everything inside until it's your choice to pull it out. So a lot of different options there.
I just say something when it comes to the pull-out system. So just kind of really be aware of when you are getting a pull-out system, because I did have a complete malfunction, is just being fully aware of how it actually works and where the best place is and how to actually pack it. So making sure that grommet is as close to the BOC as possible, just so you get that inertia to actually pop the pins. So that's one thing that I've really found with the pull-out system, is just really be aware of how it's packed so you don't have a full malfunction like me. So, yeah.
No, 100%. Really, yeah, I've seen a lot of that when people first go to jump them. They have a mal. I've seen a couple. Yeah. So really
And
check that.
the other thing to remember, if you want to do stupid shit like get into a wingsuit, pull-outs aren't friendly for that.
Yeah, don't wear wingsuit pull-outs. Yeah, I think you're the second person I've heard that from, mate. Did you do that? Did you do that personally?
No,
No.
I don't have pull-outs.
Yeah, good. Yeah, definitely. If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna have a wingsuit, like for me personally, I plan on using that same container for my wingsuit when I get my wingsuit and my free fly rig. What I'm doing is I'm planning to have a second D bag rather than having to swap the canopy all the time. Like as in swap the D bag and the canopy, have a separate D bag with a separate setup and that parachute. So you have a canopy specific for your
risers, D-bag, canopy, pilot chute all together. Yeah, I've got
that's the one.
a cross brace that I never use.
Yeah.
Because I'm not shooting. Yeah.
I just learned to free fly, not wingsuit, because it's cooler.
I can't deal with 30 seconds. I need more time.
Very good. All right, mate. Okay, cool. Cheers, Jesse, for this one. So Jesse's just asking, mate, would you fly an open face? Would you recommend an open face or a full face? I fly open face. So the reason I fly open face is because I like feeling the air on my face. If you just haven't been able to tell, if I wear a full face, I feel like I'm just playing a computer game. So it's cool for in the tunnel for that because I have it for protectiveness. But me personally, I don't like it for the sky for that pure reason. In saying that, I've been kicked in the head before and my jaw's broken on break off from a guy that I said, if you, let me find this way, we're flying along. And I said, if you fall in my burble, straighten your legs. And if you straighten your legs, this is going to track you forward in clean air and then you can come back in. Now, he fell on my burble just on break off. And as I've looked up, he's straightened his legs and he's kicked me in the jaw and he fractured my cheek just along here. I couldn't open my mouth for a couple of days. So if I had a full face, I probably wouldn't have had as bad of an injury. So full faces are definitely good. I recommend them. I don't wear them myself, and I'm probably not going to wear one. I'll deal with a broken jaw, but I would recommend wearing them for sure. They definitely do work. And if you're going to be jumping with a lot more people, they're a very, very good idea for sure. For sure. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah. Staying on the equipment one.
Yep.
Like, what's your view on like PUDs and hackies for like angles and stuff and like BOCs? Like when you see a hacky, are you just like, what are you doing? Like, get a free fly PUD.
I like that's the PUD, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer a PUD. These are just more secure. Like obviously, usually they look like this, like with a pilot chute on them. Yeah, like hackies work for sure. They're not a problem. I don't think there's an issue with them. I don't think they're completely unsafe, but PUD's just going to be much more safer in the bag. You're going to be able to pull it out a lot easier. The grip on, pull it out easier, maybe not, but it's going to be safer. I think it's a lot less snag areas. So I'd recommend going for a PUD, going for non-D rings for the handles. If you do get a D ring and you feel the need to get a handle that's a ring, you can get really small ones so they don't stick out heaps. They're really small and thin. Okay, so they're super tiny. These are good too. So, but I highly recommend PUDs are probably the way to go for sure. I do, however, on the flaps up the top, we found way more success with tuck flaps for fast speeds than what we did with magnets. It's the old Javs. I think, Jess, you may correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think you guys found this too, but It's all tuck flaps for speed. So the jabs are the best. All those the microns, mine used to fall out a fair bit, the vector, and my magnets with my vector I had to blow open a lot. This last one I had, I've gone pretty quick. My icon, I've never had an issue. I jumped Keithy's, I had an issue with that one, but that again, it can come down to the way the rigger has packed it too. So check your gear with that for sure. Any other questions on gear?
Not on gear. I've got a question about when's DD8?
Yeah, it's a good one. At the moment, depending on how all this stuff goes, I'm looking for like November would be great. But
so
as I said, yeah, no, depending on how this stuff goes, it may change to earlier depending off all the lockdowns go well and all that. But from talking to a lot of drop zones and stuff like this at the moment with all how it's all going on, there's rumours of October for tandems and stuff like that. As I said, what I'm saying now is rumours. Rumours for October being most drop zones because of social distancing. And personally myself, I don't want to be taking a tandem passenger for a long while, just for who knows what's coming up. When I used to take tandems, you pull your goggles off and like, I didn't have a runny nose. So yeah, you never know. Hey, but for sport jumpers, like fuck, where it's winter, we're all wearing gloves and masks and full faces and shit these days anyway. And at the moment, we've got a pretty good rate in Australia. So you never know. We may be open a lot quicker. I'm open for adjustments on that November one. Yeah, mate.
Fingers crossed.
Definitely.
Fingers and toes.
Yeah, 100%.
I was really looking forward to my first Down Under with you.
Mate, I was looking forward to this one more than all the others. I had a lot of good things planned for this one, so I've just moved them on to the next. I need to just not get too eager and try to jump ahead of myself to go overboard on the next couple. So we'll see.
Sure.
Cool. Any other questions, guys? Negative. What about from you, Sarah? Anything from you?
Me? No. There's still a couple of there's questions we haven't gone through.
Yeah, which ones? Do you remember which one we're up to? I just lost track from all those other questions.
I think we were up to 17.
Yep.
How do you make a jump interesting for everybody? So
cool. Okay. So for me, I can still improve every jump I do. Absolutely every jump. I can improve on a belly 4-way B-roll, everything. So if I can improve on everything, I just think what I would do on that jump to improve, and I tell people to do that, essentially. So if it's, say, a jump where we have 4 beginner trackers and a really experienced guy, and he's whinging that he needs the grip to be more experienced because he's bored, I'd probably ask what he hasn't done before and tell him to do that. Have you done transitions? No. Well, you're doing transitions. Have you done this? And just try to give always just that little bit harder, I guess. Yeah. Next one I think was, what advice do you have for a coach when a student isn't listening to them or your advice is not helping them improve? So this can be a hard one. Know your level as a coach. Don't feel you can't tell people you don't know the answer. But if this is the case, find the answer. As I said, I think previously, don't just ask them for them, but also ask them for you, because it's going to make you a better coach. Admitting your level and admitting you don't know something to someone's going to make you earn you more respect. I personally believe. Some others may be different, but I personally believe it does. Sometimes it's good to know when you need to pass someone on, hey. You'll earn more respect. Yeah, I already said that one. Yeah, pretty much that. So just happily pass them on. The tricky one is if someone isn't listening to you, and it's very difficult. If they're not listening, you can try and show them. That usually helps. And if they're just straight up not listening and they don't care and it's an attitude problem, then there's not much you can really do about that. That's just quite hard to fix. But
do you show them what they're doing wrong or show them how to do it right? Do you kind of like do both, or?
There's probably 3 options there. You can do either of those one, and then there's a last last resort, which I've only had to do a couple times, is you in essence you show them. Okay, how do I put this? Generally, the reason someone's not listening to you is because they think they're at a higher level than they actually are. And they don't care what you have to say because they think what you're saying is wrong. So when I say there's a third option, it's a bit of a cunt act, what I'm about to say. You have to hose them. You have to hose them in a safe way that they get the picture that they need to listen. And don't be a dick about it. Like, you can be polite about it. Don't, like, if you're going to do this option, as I said, this is why it's careful. If you're going to do this option, you can't do this and then give them the bird and walk off. You gotta put more effort in after you do that option. You gotta hose them, go over, explain to them, see if their attitude's changed. If their attitude still hasn't changed, well, then there's nothing you can do about it. But I'd really go through all those steps first. Hey? Explain first, try to help them out, and sometimes it's a perception thing. It just might be their perception's not there, or their understanding it different. So they're not actually being an arrogant wanker or anything like this. It's just they're perceiving it different. So that's why I go through them and question yourself first. Really, really question the delivery you're giving them, and wonder whether it's not their interpretation of what you're telling them, but your interpretation of how you're delivering it. So maybe change that delivery method and try to attack it from that different angle. If you just keep, it's the same as what it was before, passing it on. Sometimes if it's not at your level, you need to pass it on. But yeah, really think about that delivery. Ask why. Why aren't they getting it? And then, yeah, ask them. They might tell you, I guess. Has any more come through? When was the last time I did a belly jump? Not often. Not often. It wasn't long ago, actually. It was probably, geez, how long was that? No, it was 3 months, 4 months ago when we were actually jumping last. There you go, Thea. Cheers for that. What is the difference between being an LO at a boogie and an LO at a skills camp? So a boogie seems to be a bit more just load organizing, I found. Skills camp is definitely more for coaching. So if you're choosing between the two, if you want to go have fun at an event, go to a boogie. If you just want to get drunk, have fun, get up at 11, jump till 6 at night, or even go to bed early, jump all day and then get off early and party for a little bit of it, that's a boogie. So don't go to a boogie expecting to progress with coaches and briefs and debriefs. You can progress really good at a boogie, but go there with your own skill set in mind of how you want to achieve it. Don't go there relying on others. A camp, but that's very different. That's you definitely are going to be progressing a lot more. So if saying it from a coaching perspective, if a boogie hires me as a coach, I will, but sometimes I'm just reading some of my writing. Hey guys, if you can't tell, I write just as much gibberish as I speak. A skills camp is more for coaching. It does depend though. If a boogie hires me to coach, I will. Sometimes I also will, even if I'm not hired to coach. But if they say specifically this is more of just to organize loads and smash out jumps, then I'll definitely change the way I coach. But for me, I love to coach and give knowledge, and this is the best thing that I like to do, not just smash out the jumps. So in reference to the difference, the boogies seem a lot more random and panicky to organize that. They're probably less fun for me. They seem like way more work to do at boogies, for way more danger. It's a lot more chaos. I've probably almost died more times at a boogie than anything. Sometimes this is because of not knowing people. Also, the skill levels are really, really different because the level of people that rock up, you would be getting a big variety of like high skill level, low skill level, and they all want to do a different thing. So it becomes quite hard to maintain everyone's happiness. But as I said, if you're going to a boogie, go there with the right attitude, and it makes the organizer's job a lot easier. But you will have some boogies that are extremely good, and they're planned really, really, really well with no chaos whatsoever. Those boogies will generally have a really great reputation, so choose those ones. Camps, although they have a lot of structure, which are great, and you usually do the same jump over and over again with the same people. So you really progress with the coach that's going to have a knowledge of them throughout the day, plus be briefed beforehand by a previous coach that had them. So everything's a lot more structured. You're going to get a way more bang for your buck out of most camps, I would say. Same thing with camps. Some are better than others. So go there with an intention of what you're looking for, I think is probably the best one. So the next one is kind of a similar question. What are your tips for boogies and load organizing? So a big one is talking among the coaches. Come up with a plan if you're going to do that. What works for everyone, and act as a team. You want to really be a team, and it's going to make your job much easier. And then that way you can switch people between groups as well, and you can kind of turn it into a bit of a boogie. Not a boogie, a camp. So that way people are getting the most out of the jumps, and it's the safest. Like the jump that the two girls almost went through my canopy on was that was at a boogie. I'm not going to name which one, but that was at a boogie, and I was the head organizer at it, and we tried our hardest to make it safe, but sometimes there's just certain ones that are very, very, very hard. So this is the second last question, unless everyone else has more. How to be a coach or a load organizer for your mates. So this is just, I'm guessing, general weekend topic. So most of you are probably going to be doing this. The number one rule, I reckon, would be don't be a dick. That's number one. Don't overbrief your jump or talk down to your mates. Okay, so overall, we're all mates. If you be a dick to your mate because you're organising the jump, they're probably not going to jump with you again, or you're just going to get outcast. So don't be a dick. Share the love of the good slots as well. Give it to everyone and lead from the front. Don't try to organise. This is probably the biggest tip of this one is don't try to organise the sickest jump just to prove how cool an idea it had. Lead good quality and simple jumps. As I said previously, build up those small structures of jumps you have. Especially if you're doing it with mates, you should know the types of jumps you do. If you're going to do something new that you haven't tried, just go and do that same thing over and over again. If the brief is like, we're going to do a pancake, say you're doing a pancake, 3 of yous, and a pancake's head down to head up, or head down to head down linked, or head up to head down. So it's a round, and then you're flipping it. If you've never done this before, don't put it in the middle of a jump and go, okay, we're going to do a head down accordion, then we're going to do a round, and then we're going to do a flower, and then we're going to do a round, then we're going to do a pancake, and then we're going to do this and that. Go out the door and do a pancake, and then come back together and do a pancake, and then come back together again and do another pancake. And that way you're just doing pancakes the whole way down. So eventually you're just going to smash you do 2 jumps like this, and all of a sudden you might have perfected the pancake, and then you can start adding jumps in. So get a couple of good drill dives that you have going, and this could be different from an angle jump. For me, for an angle jump, I did 200 of the same jump in a row, and that was just going straight, trying to take a dock. And for us back in the day, that was the shit. Like, you come up, you take a dock, like, man, you're killing it. That's the sickest shit in the world. You stay up all night around the bar, drinking piss, telling each other how cool that jump was. Like, it's just what you do. And now the thing is, we want to do a turn, we want to do another turn, then we want to take a dock, and that's a basic angle jump. Like, just go and take docks again. Just do simple stuff. The more you drill it over and over, the better you're going to be. Some of the best flyers out there are the guys that have just done the same shit. That's why training for teams generally has great results of improving flies a lot, because they just drill that same thing over and over again. So yeah, build a good foundation. Lead good quality simple jumps, I think, is probably the best tip for how to become a coach and an organizer for your mates. Go simple. Lead the most simplest jump the best. So the last question was, are you ever nervous when coaching? I reckon most of you will be able to answer that one from some of the stuff I briefed today. I reckon the answer is yes. I do drive out to boogies and jumps, and it's happened probably more recently in the later years, wondering whether it's going to be my last event. And I just saw a couple of his, Sarah's like, well, what the fuck? And I'm being serious with that because I've had too many times where I've had a lot of close calls. So we are doing a dangerous sport, and I've also lost many, many close mates to me. From most of them haven't died from big mistakes. Like most of them have died from little mistakes that led to big mistakes. So it can happen, and it can happen quick. So yeah, I am, but I'm also doing it for a full-time job. No, I won't stop. So yes, I'm nervous, but keep going. So, yeah, hopefully I didn't bore all you guys tonight. So if you have any more, feel free. But otherwise, thank you.
I've got a question for you. What do you say, just say you're in a skills camp like DD, what do you say if you're not getting along with your coach or someone in the group? Like, how do you approach that?
If it's DD, come see me. That works. I'm always happy to fix and adjust. And I think I can't say I'm looking here. I've done it before in the past. I've had that very much thing come up. So come see me personally if that's the case. Otherwise, other boogies, I'd recommend doing the same. Go and see the event organizer, depending what the issue is. If you're just not gelling with them, you can even go and find another group that might look good and suit your skill level, and try and go up to the organizer, like a head organizer, with an alternative and a reason why. If you feel comfortable, approach the coach. If you don't think he's going to be receptive, or he or she's going to be receptive, yeah, I just go around them. Hey, because it can be very, very, very tricky, especially depending on the type of skill camp you have. If you have only, say, 3 coaches, it can be quite tricky. I've had it before where I've been on 2 or 3 events years ago, more when I was overseas, where I didn't really get along with the coach, and I just shut it, went on with it for the day, learned what I could, and then fingers crossed I didn't get in that group again. But sometimes it can be worse than that. So if it's worse than that, yeah, just go up and approach the other one, I would say, if they're not approachable themselves. Yeah. Yes.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I think I've had that situation before, but it wasn't with the coach. It was another jumper that I didn't feel comfortable to jump with, and pulled myself off that, and didn't feel scared to pull myself off that, and just make the right decision.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely also I'm pretty sure I made you aware of that just kind of knowing.
I've done it many times.
Yeah, if you feel unsafe, like if there's another unsafe person on the jump, yeah, just take yourself off. I would take yourself off. Let the coach know as well why, for sure. You don't have to let everyone know who's on the jump, but you can pull the coach aside and afterwards and say, hey, I'm not, like, I've seen this many times, having had this done to me too. I don't think it was either of you that did it to me, but I've had it before done to me, and the person just said, yeah, I'm not ready for the jump, and they've used an excuse like I'm tired or something like this, and then they've come up to me and said, hey, like, I just pulled off the jump because old matey on the last one almost took me out and I didn't feel comfortable with this, so I'm going to sit out. That way it lets them know as well, shit, there's someone there. Or they might say, yeah, I actually saw that and I've now changed the jump to this method now so that doesn't happen again. I'm fine with you sitting out because of blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. That might happen as well. And then that might make you feel more comfortable. Go, okay, they've actually put a bit of thought into this. Maybe I'll hop back on. But personally, if your gut feeling's telling you something, I would go with it. Do not, if something's telling you something, old matey's going to take me out, probably stay off the jump because he's most likely going to take you out. Yeah. Cool. Any more, guys? I've seen a couple blank staring faces. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very, very much, guys, for the seminar, and if any, or for rocking up. If any of you ever have any questions as well at all, any time for anything like this, let me know. I think Sarah said she might get us back on for another one. I'm not sure. If you did,
Yeah,
cool.
no, that would
If
be
not,
really, really
I
good.
am more than happy with that as well too. So, yeah, not a problem. So if you have any questions as well that you want me to cover, just send me some stuff. As I said in previous ones, I've been doing a YouTube channel up with, it's only got like probably 3 videos on it at the moment, but I'll be doing a lot more. So the more questions you guys have of topics that want to be covered, the more things I can create actual lessons on, because sometimes I have an idea in my head, but then I just go down the rabbit hole too much. So if you actually have more specific questions, I can then answer them a lot more specific, and I can get videos and footage and I can put it all together so it makes more sense too. So yeah.
Perfect.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you so much, Mason, for
Thank
talking.
you guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Mason.
Thanks, Mason.
No
Thank you,
worries.
Mason.
Legend.
Cheers.
Mason.
Yeah, stay tuned for November, guys. But fingers crossed it's much sooner. So yeah, and for those that were registered on the previous one, I have something for you too. So we'll sort that out. Cool.
Yay.
All right. Cheers, guys. Have a good one, and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.